Welcome to the Pinning Combination Podcast. I'm KJ Pilcher of the Gazette, alongside Dick Briggs. We're a man down. Wyatt's got some personal things to attend to, and our thoughts go out to Wyatt as he takes care of that, and he'll be back next week to break down things. And of course, this weekend there's some action on the college side, not too much on the prep side because of winter finally making an appearance and everything. But
I had to hear it long distance. I was down in Kentucky, so the weather was nice down there. Matter of fact, they were expecting record 70 degrees on Sunday, I think, when we the day after we left. So it was nice all week.
You should have boxed some of that up and brought it back with you.
Some of that warm temps, yeah.
Even though we've been really fortunate with how things have gone so far, considering some of the winters that
I was surprised because Kentucky is not that much further south than Cedar Rapids. I mean, so
yeah.
And I'm thinking such a change, but anyway.
But we'll discuss the turn of events that happened in Indiana this weekend. We'll talk about Kentucky, right across the border there where you were at. We'll touch on UNI, Iowa State, and then kind of maybe look ahead to the preps since there wasn't much action. But before we get into that, go into our regular feature.
That's right. Okay, so you're the only one that can answer this week.
So all the pressure's on me.
And I made it simple. It's a true or false. So you got a 50-50 chance, right? Okay. So in a near fall situation where the defensive wrestler's shoulders or scapula are beyond the boundary line and the offensive wrestler's toes or heels are his supporting points and his knees are outside the boundary line, is this a near fall? This is a near fall and should be awarded points. So in other words, let me give you an example. I throw a headlock on. Mm-hmm. Both of our bodies are outside the boundary line and still on the mat, not on the floor or anything like that, and still on the boundary line. We're in near fall situation. My toes or my heels, if it's a headlock, probably my heels, are in on the mat, and the boundary line is between my knees and my heels.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Yep.
Okay, so is that near fall situation or is it not?
Boy, that's tough because now you're getting into the gray area with supporting points, and for a takedown, you just have to have part of it in.
In high school, you have to have two supporting points in for a.
Not sure if that changes for near fall, where you have to have something else. I'm gonna say, kind of based on the supporting points, I'm gonna say no, it is not.
The guy's on, man. It is false, and here's the situation. Because the line, the boundary line is below the knees and not above the knees. It should be stopped and restarted.
Okay.
If my heels or toes were in bounds and my knees were above the line or inside the line, kind of a cylinder, right? So they don't have to be on the ground. Now it becomes a near fall situation. I can either score. That top wrestler can either score near fall or the pin. So good call.
Yeah.
Now the difference, and you're exactly right, because in a takedown, if the toes are in, like for instance, if I do a double leg takedown and I've got both legs secured, my knees landed outside the line and my feet were up and then came down, it's kind of a reaction time. If my here and then my toes come down, that's two. So you're exactly right. And even though my knees are out of bounds. So very good.
Right.
Man. He is on.
I had 3 for 3. Which I've never been in anything ever.
If we could only had a wrestling class in high school.
Yeah, right? I might have got my first B. I'm not going to go so far as to say an A, but no. That's awesome. And see, those are little distinctions that a lot of people don't realize.
Yep. Exactly. And it makes it tough to officiate sometimes because you're watching the line, you're watching over here, you're watching up there, It's just there's a lot to realize, and then you throw in sometimes at the end of a period or at the end of the match, so it gets pretty chaotic. So you got to kind of as official stay calm and make the call.
Cool.
So, anyway, good job.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Hey,
Speaking,
this just in, Iowa, the University of Iowa is a good wrestling team.
yeah, you think they're doing a pretty good job?
They're pretty good.
Kind of an unheard of swing, going 20-0 into, we're just talking about Purdue kind of being an up and comer. I think in tournament rankings they're ranked as high as 6 or a top 10 team there. I think they're ranked like 19th in the coach, 18th or 19th in the coaches poll for duels.
I think I saw 20th, but maybe moving up. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yep.
So
right in there. You're right.
and for them to post back-to-back 41-0 victories in Indiana was pretty impressive because, you've got ranked wrestlers. Even though team strength, it's not a surprise that they won. Just the way they dominated was pretty impressive.
I think the absolutely right. And they won a couple of close matches. As I recall, Young beat a ranked wrestler against Purdue, and so that was a nice win for him. I believe it was a 4-3 match. And is it Lighty? Is that who I'm thinking of?
Coleman wrestled Kemmerer.
Oh, Kemmerer and Lighty. That's right. So, and
ranked
I'm saving that for the Kemmerer because really there's two storylines, I think, and I'm sure you probably do too, coming out of the trip east by Iowa. And one of them was that Kemmerer was back in the lineup and did a great job. Beat Lighty.
And pulled away. I think
8-6. What was the score?
8-4.
8-4.
And pulled away with a couple takedowns in the third period, which I don't think he looked spectacular against Indiana in the win there, which made me think, oh, geez, how is this going to turn out Sunday? And then for him to close as strong as he did late in that match against a pretty stout, Lighty won the Midlands.
Right.
Did he win Vegas or just finish?
Boy.
I can't remember, but I remember he beat Steyert and from you and I both at Vegas and at Midland. So that's a quality opponent that Kemmerer
and
beat there.
for whatever reason didn't wrestle in Midlands himself. So obviously it was some little thing that's
precautionary, as Brands put it last week.
Good now. And then the second storyline, of course, is
the big one. Abe Assad having his red shirt
pulling that shirt off,
for this season. And, the big question was, that many people are asking, okay, does that mean 184 is settled? And my response is it has to be. It has to be his now because you're not going to pull the red shirt off somebody the caliber of Abe Assad and end up burning a season based on him being a reserve.
Right, and now it's a three-man race. That doesn't make sense to me either.
Yeah.
And so they must believe that he will provide more at the national tournament than the other two would have. I got to believe that, and there might be some other extenuating circumstances or pressures or whatever. Maybe Abe wanted to get out and get going, and so that sort of thing. But we'll never know. We're not involved, and we don't have that information to build a. So we're kind of guessing.
A lot of the factors, and one of the things that I think is interesting, because I was on here saying that I didn't think that would be a move that would be made. They had,
I didn't either.
They had quality guys, and even Coach Brands mentioned in the weekly media availability that this was a little bit different situation than in the past, where they were waiting for somebody to emerge and be a quality guy to kind of separate himself. Here you had three quality individuals that were vying for a spot. And it's not that they're waiting for somebody, that was struggling to kind of step up. You had three people that, even two before the red shirt, that you had two quality guys there, and then a third that was a true freshman waiting in the wings. But, it was just a different thing. And, do they really need them? We'll only tell in March, in Minnesota. But it shows that they're not taking any chances. They want the gun to be fully loaded come the postseason time. And Assad won 2 matches, including one over Purdue's Max Lyon, who was back in the lineup. He won 5-2 over Max from Western Dubuque. So, it's a little bit of a head scratcher, but like you said, there are a lot of different factors that we're not privy to, and we never will, that go into something like this. And now,
and having all of those options isn't necessarily comforting as a coach. I mean, yeah, you've got a lot of depth there, but it's not an easy decision because you've got three quality wrestlers, their families, and everything else that are involved in that decision, and then throw in the wrinkle that it's a coach's family member. Not that that's even a question, but that's also there's just all that there's so many different layers to that. So it's interesting. We'll see how it plays out.
And I think, I don't know, I could just be making this up, or it's just kind of a false observation on my part, just for what I think. I think we see a lot more true freshman wrestling than maybe we have in the past. You can look at it a lot of different ways. I think wrestlers are much more advanced now. And I think, they have so many more matches under their belt by the time they're in, a junior, senior in high school. You've got guys that have competed on the national or international stage, like Assad, Spencer Lee, who have wrestled internationally already before they even stepped on the college campus. So wrestlers are a little bit more advanced. So you're getting somebody that's not necessarily a freshman that way than maybe a decade or 2 decades ago. The other thing I think is making that's making an impact. One, the transfer portal. And I don't think this has anything to do with the current situation. I'm just saying others that we've seen
on the landscape of
and it's not just college, or
wrestling.
Wrestling. I think it's other sports that with the transfer portal, I think wrestlers and their families have a lot more leverage. Where, it used to be, I can remember. I think it was Gable that told stories about how him and Lincoln McElreavy's dad were at odds about pulling the shirt, not to pull the shirt, and everything. And, Gable made the decision, Lincoln's going to wrestle, and did that. It's kind of the reverse, because I think at that time they could have said, no, he's redshirting, or, we'll transfer. Mm-hmm. I think with the transfer portal, athletes can say, I get my way, or I'm hitting the bricks. And coaches are behind the 8 ball a little bit if that comes up.
Well, I mean, and like you said, in any sport, not just this instance, but that's an option for athletes now, and it puts a little bit more communication strategy, also all of those things together for a coach. It makes it tougher for sure.
And here's another thing that I just happened to be talking to J.R. Ogden during our staff meeting. The availability for hardship waivers, too, and getting years back to injury, where right now, say Joe Schmo gets his red shirt pulled after Midlands. I'm just making a fictional thing because I don't want to.
Hypothetical.
Yeah. He wrestles about 7 matches and gets hurt and isn't able to compete in the postseason. Yep. Years ago, that would have eaten up a year of eligibility.
Yep.
And you're not going to put a kid in a situation where he's going to lose a year of eligibility that way. Now, you wrestle a half dozen matches, something like that. There's a better chance now with the way they're handing out hardship waivers that you could reclaim that year of eligibility after your senior year and get it back. So the risk is a little bit less. Hey, if something were to happen, more than likely you would be able to get that back based on some of the criteria.
Maybe less of a risk.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. So years ago, there was 5 years to get in for. There was no Olympic red shirt. There was no hardship. If you hurt your knee or whatever, you were done. That year was done. So in projecting this out, he's still able to take a red shirt after this year.
Yeah.
So if he does, then his senior year, he would be eligible for an Olympic year because that'd be 4 years down the road, right? So who knows how this will play out? We'll see. Huh? There's all sorts of things.
Yeah, and that's you bring up a good point because a lot of people, I don't think they mistake it, but they kind of jump to the conclusion. Well, now he's not going to redshirt. You could wrestle 2 years redshirt, and then wrestle 2 more.
And who knows? Maybe he's a kid that's not a great student. I don't have no idea. It might be an academic All-American, but doesn't want to be in school for 5 or 6 years. And maybe that's
I think that plays in for some people's decisions as well. But no doubt about it, it turned a lot of heads. It made a big splash. Yeah. And certainly there's a lot of excitement kind of surrounding that decision. And now, one of the other things too, with introducing him into the lineup, you've got 2 or 3 at 84. That opens the door for Nelson Brands to make his way back down to 74 and be kind of an insurance policy if something happens to Kemmerer. So not only do you have that situation in 84 and kind of strong, but now you're kind of giving yourself a chance to deepen what you have at 74. Just in case.
You have that flexibility for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it works on a couple of different levels there. But one of the other things too that kind of came out of this weekend for Iowa, Marinelli with a couple pins. Warner with a big win over Christian Brunner. Mm-hmm. I think that's a win that he kind of, I would say, he needed a little bit, but he didn't just win. I mean, he closed, got a couple set of near fall points in the final period, and almost majored the number 2 ranked guy in the country.
Right.
So that was a big win for Warner.
And Warner has been one of those guys that seems to wrestle to his opponent's level. Mm-hmm. Like, man, that's huge, stepping up to number 2. Yep. And I shouldn't say that. I mean, he has put the hammer down on a lot of guys as well. Yeah. But sometimes it seems like he's been down at other guys' level.
Maybe even a little, maybe inconsistent. Maybe it's kind of inconsistent has been a little bit, kind of given how he.
At least by Iowa standards.
Yeah. And we should use air quotes with some of those terms. But I think he finished behind Brunner and Brookie from Purdue and Princeton. At the Midlands, and now he has he wins in duels over both over the last month. So that was a big win for him, and the rest of the team really. You mentioned Young's win over Coleman. The two of them had a battle at Midlands. Was it sudden victory maybe, or went right down to the wire in regulation? I can't quite remember, but he got another nice win there, and. Dominance out of everybody else with Spencer, DeSanto, Cassiope,
They're good.
And now you're going into the stretch that I think everybody is pointed to. You've got Nebraska coming up on Saturday, which, don't forget, last week the University of Iowa announced the Sorensen Strong Bandana giveaway. First 3,000 fans to enter the gates there at Carver Hawkeye Arena Saturday night will receive a bandana to help support Brandon Sorensen in his battle with acute lymphoblastic leukemia.
Lymphoma. And so anyway, then also the sales beyond that, 100% of the proceeds, not 100%. Of the is
everything.
Not everything.
Yep. Not just the proceeds.
Proceeds, right.
Everything.
So I said that wrong. So 100% of everything goes towards his family to help with medical costs.
Yeah. And let me let's see if I can find the website for that as well. But yeah, so a neat
Very neat.
a neat thing going on there. On Saturday, in addition to the duel, maybe a little luster has come off that duel. Nebraska was number 2, lost to Wisconsin this last weekend. You know, but you've got that stretch with Nebraska coming, Ohio State next week, and then Penn State. You know, if you go down to Carver instead of to Co for the Co-Wartburg duel.
Well, I can tell you, they may have been number 2 on paper, but I'm pretty sure everyone is looking forward to the Penn State meet at the end of the month. Yeah. And you know, Nebraska is a good team. Don't get us wrong. They lost to Wisconsin, but that's a decent team. And
but I don't think anybody really thought Nebraska was the second best.
I honestly didn't.
Yeah.
Especially with as close as they were with UNI, you know, and I just, you know, I thought that just didn't seem right to me. But Wisconsin beat them, and then now I don't know who'll be second. Maybe Wisconsin, Penn State, somewhere. We'll see.
A couple interesting matchups there possibly this weekend. 41 Murin and Chad Red. Mm-hmm. And then you look at 165 with I believe it's White and Marinelli. 74. Is that Labriola and Cameron?
I think so. I think it is. Yeah.
Yep. And then 84. You know, see what Assad does against Vents.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So could be some fun matchups, even though I think Iowa as a team will come away with
right now it's just they can get through these next 3 duels, and like they've been putting it to everyone else, they should be in good shape if they stay healthy. You know, that's kind of been the bugaboo the last 2-3 years for Iowa.
Yep.
And not for Penn State. And now this year, you know, I don't want to have our conversation go that direction, but we'll save that for a couple of weeks. But Penn State's had a little bit of the injury, so it's nice to see Iowa healthy.
Yeah, and according to the NWCA Division I rankings, prior to last weekend's competition, because Penn State beat Northwestern, more than likely Penn State would move back into the number 2.
Yeah.
And of course Ohio State's.
What was Wisconsin at? They were,
Wisconsin was at 8.
So they're going to jump a few. I think.
Yeah, I would think.
Yep, maybe.
You know, but let's get to the multinational duels in Louisville as well. Wartburg comes away with, I believe it's 12.
Can I tell a little story before I?
Sure, go ahead.
I think you're aware of this, but it was kind of a neat thing. The bugler for the Kentucky Derby was at the National Wrestling Duels for the finals, and he bugled or he played the national anthem, and then also call to the post, and you know and anyway, and I knew he was from Cedar Rapids, and I thought he was kind of coming over near me, so I walked over to him and started a conversation with him. And I said, "Yeah, you're from Cedar Rapids, right?" "Yeah, so am I." I said, "You went to Washington High School?" "Yep." And I said, "I taught there." And I go, "What year did you graduate?" 1983. And that's the last of the 3 years I was there, 80 to 83. And I'm going, "Wow, that's when I was there." And I go, "I was a wrestling coach." And he goes, and I said my name, and he goes, I didn't even say my name. I said I was a wrestling coach. "Mr. Briggs, you were my photography teacher." And I went, "Oh boy." I didn't remember. It's been only 37 to 39 years ago or something like that. So
yeah, right.
You think I'd remember that?
But that's pretty cool.
Oh, it was really neat. And I tell you, he was a great guy. He was a super cool dude. So it was fun. It was fun for me anyway to see that. And we talked a little bit about his career and how he's so thankful and lucky to be in that position. So he's the only bugler, and that's pretty neat. So.
Yeah, one of the marquee sporting events around. I mean,
right.
You know, the Kentucky Derby is one of the most common.
And when he's
popular.
doing the call to the post, I mean, people around the world, whether they're gamblers or not, are watching that.
Yeah, right.
So very cool.
It was cool that he was at the meet.
Anyway, onto the wrestling. I guess we'll start with D2 because D3.
Whichever way you want.
Yeah, let's go D3. So D3 had 24 teams there, and 4 of them were from the American River Conference and Iowa teams. Luther, who is a much improved team, they did a nice job. They went 2-1. They lost to North Central, who was a top 10 ranked team, 25-13. They beat the number 9 ranked team, Wisconsin Lacrosse, and that one was 18-18, and it went down to tiebreaker. And I think it was the most falls, and there was 1 fall, and the 41-pounder for Luther got that fall, Marcus Mandler, and I think that was the difference. So it was a 19-18 tie-breaking win. And then they lost to a very good Olivet team. I watched Olivet Russell Coe, and they're a good team. They lost to them 26-18. With Luther, add them to that mix in the ARC. Man, the ARC's tough conference this year. Besides the 4 teams who are there, throwing Central, and you've got a pretty decent conference with those teams. Coe College, they were seeded 6th. They finished 5th. They went 4-1 on the weekend. Great weekend. And anyway, they beat Ithaca, the number 13 ranked Ithaca, 35-3. They lost to Wabash, number 3 Wabash, in a real close meet, 20-16. Then they beat Olivet, and it come from behind, 25-12 after losing the first 4 matches. So, four of the first 5 matches. Sorry.
And also, I think Taylor Maiman. Maybe I'm thinking of Baldwin Wallace.
Yeah, save that one. Taylor,
but he had a big win.
Because there's a wrinkle in what you're about to say.
Yeah.
You're not aware of it. So
okay.
It's one of those. Anyway, so then in Baldwin Wallace, the number 7 ranked team. Actually, I'm thinking of Johnson Wales. Maybe
that might be what I'm thinking of.
So anyway, so then let's see. Then they lost to Baldwin Wallace, 21-13. This is kind of neat. Brian Fritz, Brady's dad, and I were watching the duel, and we're standing next to the mat side, and one of the wrestlers' shoes came untied. And so
really?
Yeah, one of our
well, we discussed
you make the call last week, and so we're going, is it the same rule in college? And I go, I don't know. So we were waiting to see if it got called. Well, the Coe kid pinned him, and he never came up after his shoe became untied, so we didn't get to see what the ref would have called. Jim Torvik was standing next to us, and we said, "Hey, Jim, is that the same rule in college as it is in high school?" And he confirmed that it is. So,
really?
So there you go. Anyway, that was kind of neat.
Speaking of Brady Fritz, this just came across in my email. He was named the American Rivers Conference Wrestler of the Week for his point.
And very deservedly so.
Going 4-0 at the National Duals.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
All right, so now to this Johnson and Wales meet. It ended up. Let me kind of do it this way. So Coe was down 18-6 with 4 matches left. They got a decision by Ryan Schott and Josh Edel, and then Taylor Maiman finished. So it reports that it was a pin. It was not.
Oh, okay.
It was not. So track has reported it differently. So Taylor was losing 10-2 with about, I'm going to say 45 seconds left. And I was watching that meet, and I was also watching the Loris meet side by side. So I was my attention was going back and forth. So Taylor gets to his feet, escapes, gets a couple of stalling calls, so now the match stops with 1 second left, and he's losing 10-6. And Coach O comes over to the table, and there's a discussion going on. So now I'm watching Loris, and I look over, and the referee walks back to the middle of the mat, has him shake hands, and raises Maiman's hand.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm going, what just happened? I wasn't watching. I was kind of split my attention. I went over, and there's two co-dads sitting next to me. One of them was Mr. Edel, Josh's dad, and I didn't know that, but I went over and asked him, what just happened? He goes, he was disqualified for stalling.
Really?
So the referee did not realize that it was the last call, the final call. You get a warning, 1-1, 2 points, and then disqualification. So the 5th call, Osendorp, and I'm going to credit his manager, his coach, whoever was keeping score for telling him, or maybe it was coach, to come over and to address that at the table, and it ended up winning that match. I mean, that's a 9-point swing right there.
Yeah, exactly.
And with 1 second left.
Wow.
And then that tied the match, 18-18. And then Reeves goes out and put on a Greco clinic. He was throwing this guy back and forth, 18 to 4. 4 was it? Mm-hmm. And when he was up by 10, I said to Mr. Edel, I said, I think now I might back off on the throws, not giving her locking up, So, but he didn't. So he's been wrestling with O and some Greco there. So, but the manager thing brings up a point. When I was a coach, I had multiple times when my manager would come up and show me, hey, the scoring's not right, and we'd go to the table, and I was so thankful and lucky to have such quality managers and scorekeepers that if that was the case there, good job, scorekeeper, whoever that was. So anyway, that was pretty neat. And then Loris was seeded fourth, came in and placed third. So Cohen and Loris and Wartburg, and Luther all wrestled above their seed. So very nice job with Art. Loris went in. They beat RIT, number 15 ranked, Rochester Institute of Technology, 38-3. They beat New York University, 21-12. They lost a hard battle to Augsburg, 22-10. And then they beat Wabash 36-9. Matt Ramdone and Jacob Krakow went 4-0 on the weekend. This is the first time they've been in this tournament since 2015, and the first time, or it's the first time since TJ Miller's been the coach. So it's good to have them back in this meet, I think.
Yeah.
So,
strong finish from them.
Yeah.
As well.
I'm not sure the Wabash. They wrestled a few more varsity against Loris than they did against Wartburg, or maybe the same. But for whatever reason, they didn't have their varsity intact for the second day, and so that was the third seeded Wabash. So I know their defending national champ didn't wrestle, and quite a few others didn't. So they're ranked kids. But anyway, so then Wartburg. Went 4-0 and placed first, and they were the second seed. They beat Milliken, number 22 Milliken, 25-18. They beat Baldwin Wallace, and that's the same team that Co beat. I'm going to tell you how close this meet was, and how close Wartburg was to not being even in the semifinals. So Baldwin Wallace won 6 out of the 10 matches. Wartburg only won 2. The first 2 they won by pin. At 84, with 1 second left, we get a takedown. Wartburg gets a takedown to secure a technical fall with 1 second left. So now it goes into heavyweight, and it's 20-17, and a tie would go Baldwin Wallace's way. So Wartburg needs a major to make it a 21-20 meet. And with about 30 seconds left, the Wartburg heavyweight is up by only 4. And so and they're on their feet. Well, he gets a deserved stalling call, and then the Baldwin Wallace kid backs out. So by the rules, that's another stalling call. So he gets 1-1, and with 1 second left, the Wartburg heavyweight got the takedown to get the major and win 21-20. That's how close they were to not even being in the semifinals. So anyway, what an exciting meet that was. And then in the third round, they beat Wabash, and then in the semis, and then in the finals, the 3-time defending champ and multiple champ Augsburg, they beat them 24-15. That Augsburg lineup boasted 4 returning NCAA champions and 3 other All-Americans. Wartburg won 7 of the 10 matches, and in 3 of the in all 9 matches that there was a takedown. There's one match there was no takedown, but in all 9 of those matches, Wartburg got the first takedown.
Really?
They came out gunning, man, and good for them. They really wanted it. In that meet, 4 number 1 ranked guys lost. 3 from Augsburg, and then that one other one from Wartburg. Sadly, sadly, I went home personally, but
do we know?
Kyle, you got to wrestle to win, I guess. And then this was pretty cool. Max Forsythe, Charles City Prep, pinned 2-time NCAA champ, and he didn't catch him or whatever. He got the first takedown. He took it to him on top and turned him over and pinned him. So that was a nice big win by Max Forsythe. Brady Fritz and Jordan Brandon, the heavyweight, went 4-0. Chris Rump went 2-0. He didn't wrestle the first days because he had able backups. Joe Pins wrestled 1 match from Hempstead, and Owen McClave was a All-American that transferred in. So they had good guys wrestling there. Some notes on D3. 7 number 1 ranked guys lost. Oh, there was only 8 there. The other 2 weren't there. The only one that didn't was Rumpf. So
wow,
and
that's crazy. I mean, it's shows you the depth of talent.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of unheard of. I've never.
Right.
Especially on day one, I think you had messaged me and said 5 of them had lost on day one.
Exactly. And actually some of them had multiple losses.
Wow.
So some of the Augsburg kids. So but wrestling's it's kind of a funny sport. Wrestling is. Like I know a guy that had 3 wins, 2 pins and a tech fall, and lost his last match 4-3, and is not feeling very good about the weekend. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, that's.
NAIA. This is going to be brief. If I remember when I said Iowa was good, oh boy, at Grandview,
Yeah.
they're so much better than any other school in NAIA. I mean, they only lost 3 matches all weekend. 3 matches.
Wow.
They're absolutely untouchable.
4 duels.
Yeah, and 4 duels. So they won 49-0, 26-6. That was their closest meet. And then 42-3, and in the finals, 40-0 over Life.
Wow.
So
Wow. What Nick Mitchell has built there. And to think he built it from scratch.
yeah,
It wasn't a program that was already built, no history, anything. He's built it from scratch
yeah.
over there. It's pretty amazing.
Division II has had 19 teams, and St. Cloud, whom I have seen and is a pretty good team, had a battle in the finals against McKendree. It was they won 17-16 for first place, and this is interesting because St. Cloud lost a team point for evidently a singlet being down, and then the heavyweight, which made it, they lost a team point. So anyway, then the heavyweight for McKendree was awarded a 2-point takedown at the buzzer. I was watching this is the last meet going on. He's awarded a 2-point takedown that would have tied the meet, and I don't know how the criteria would have fallen. But after discussion with the assistant referee, the referee wiped off the takedown.
Really?
So that didn't give it a major, and then it didn't take it into tiebreaker, and
St. Cloud State.
So it's exciting, man. Jeez.
Kept their 1-point advantage. That's
Yep. For Upper Iowa, went 3-2, finished 7th, I believe, and then they beat Gannon, lost to McHenry, the runner-up, 20-14. So they lost to a very respectable score. They beat Colorado School of Mines, lost to Pitt Johnstown, and then beat Tiffin for 7th, right? And on their team, best record was probably Chase Lunsman, 4-1, and one of his wins or his loss was to one highly ranked kid. And then Justin Foley also went 3-0, but didn't wrestle the second day.
yeah. Lensman dropped a 7-5 decision to Eanes of Pittsburgh Johnstown, which I think is
I can tell you in a second.
might be ranked number 1 even. But I believe
I think I got to switch.
I believe Lensman might have been making his debut or has recently joined the lineup. Yeah, there's Eden's from.
Oh yeah, he's number 1. Yep, sorry. They had it abbreviated.
Yeah, so I think if I saw Coach Grimm's tweet correctly, he's just recently come out of redshirt. And then to have a weekend like that was
That's
pretty
a great
impressive.
weekend, yep.
Yeah.
So
And you got to think, that's a strong showing for
Right.
Upper Iowa as well.
And I don't know. There was a lot of guys that weren't wrestling second day that were in and out of lineups, but right now that's a good opportunity for coaches to get guys in and see where they're at and see if they're going to be able to answer the call and also you've got injuries, you have maybe some weight issues, you've got all sorts of things. So you never know what's going on there. So anyway, the only other D3 action this weekend was Dubuque Invitational, where they bring in 2 teams and do duels. That was Cornell and Dubuque. So I thought we might mention that.
Yeah, one thing that I want to mention about the national duels with some local interest there. I think a lot of people already realize that Milliken, who wrestled Wartburg early in the duels, coached by Ryan Burt, who wrestled at Upper Iowa, was in, I believe, D3 national champ for the Peacocks. Has helped out I think he was an assistant at Loris as well before becoming the head coach at Milliken. And then Baldwin Wallace is actually coached by a former Western Dubuque prep, Jamie Gibbs, as well.
And a Wartburg grad. And,
Okay.
And Olivet is also, I don't know the coach's name, but he's also a Wartburg grad as well. So.
I'll look that up really quick. And yeah, you mentioned at Dubuque, some duels at Dubuque.
Dubuque Duals.
Yeah.
So you had basically they do it as a 2-week tournament. So this weekend they had Cornell and Concordia from Wisconsin in, and then the 3 dueled each other. Next week they'll have who do they have coming in? Wheaton and Nebraska Wesleyan. So anyway, Cornell beat Concordia 30-17, and then lost to Dubuque 36-12, and then Dubuque also beat Concordia 32-15. So Dubuque went 2-0, Cornell 1-1, and Concordia 0-2. So.
And a big weekend coming up for Cornell. As well with the Mike DeRoe Invitational this weekend.
Right. Most of the D3 teams will be there. Some of the D3 action this week, and not all of them bring their varsity, I think, because they have some duels. But like, for instance, on Thursday, Augustana's at Co. So I don't know if Co will bring their varsity to... we'll wait and see on the weekend. I'm not sure. Wartburg has Luther at Luther, and I know that most of the Wartburg varsity probably won't be wrestling there. And then Loris is at Central. And I don't know if Loris goes, I don't remember if they go to the Duro or not. So, and then we already spoke of Iowa hosting Nebraska. So.
Yep. And the coach you were referring to, Brandon Brissett, was a 2005 graduate and a 4-year letter winner at Wartburg. So
From Olivet, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of Iowa ties in that D3 bracket as well. And did you mention the JUCO
I did.
finishes?
Here's the junior college had only 8 teams there.
Okay.
I believe, I'm guessing they have, I think D3 has 116 teams, which is by far the biggest, the most schools in any of the 3 divisions, 1, 2, and 3. And so I'm guessing junior college has more, but I'm guessing budgets don't maybe allow for travel or whatever.
Yeah. So none of the Iowa JUCOs were in the field there for that. Really, the only other thing on the diet, Iowa State. UNI hosted South Dakota State on Friday at the West Gym, and then Missouri on Sunday. Kind of a tough one on Friday.
Boy, hot and cold, black and white, whatever the opposites are.
Yeah, right.
On and off, they seem to not be on. Though I will give South Dakota State credit, they're a much improved team over last year.
Yes,
they were not good last year, and they are good this year, I think so. At least to my recalling.
Yeah, and they had a big week. Not only did they beat UNI, but I think they turned around and beat Wyoming as well. So a big weekend for South Dakota State there.
Well, they had Vega. Remember, Danny Vega was at Iowa State and now landed at South Dakota State. They've got those Carlson brothers that are real good on that team. They also have Zach Price and Henry Pullmeyer. Iowa kids that are on that team doing well. And, of course, at 197, our local Tanner Sloan. So lots of Iowa influence on that.
Yeah, and I think Pullmeyer get a win over Thompson.
Yes, he did. It's actually a major, and that had to have been very disappointing for Coach Schwab, and especially for Thompson.
Yeah, and then I believe Sloan actually sealed the victory for South Dakota State with a pin there. So a good homecoming for Tanner. As well. And then they bounced back and beat Mizzou on Sunday.
Nice. Mizzou's always a good, tough team, so that was a nice win there for him, I think. Thompson, again, poor Thompson, after getting beat on Friday, had to come back wrestle number 4, Brock Mahler, and wrestled him well. I think it might have gone to sudden victory, but it was very close. I believe it was sudden victory, and just couldn't get her done there. But I think, the Panthers wrestled a lot better, so that was the opposite of Friday. So
and that was one of the things Doug Schwab kind of mentioned, was he was proud of the way the guys bounced back and rebounded for that big one.
I think that's fair. So yeah.
And this coming up weekend, you and I will head to Colorado. They'll have 2 duels with Northern Colorado and Air Force.
Air Force.
There, I think in Greeley and then Colorado Springs for those.
Have you ever been to the Air Academy?
I have not.
It's really cool. So just going onto the campus and in there it's beautiful. I mean, besides where it sits,
I actually have a daughter that's interested in joining the Air Force when she.
Well, she can go to the academy. That's a nice place.
Yeah.
So we can go visit.
Yeah, we
Beautiful
should.
place. So that'll be fun to wrestle there. You do have some altitude issues you have to kind of deal with as well. Not extremely high, but mile high, right? So
Right. And of course, I think a lot of people will recognize the coach at Air Force, Sam Barber, has Iowa ties. Was a part of the Upper Iowa program for a while, and I can't remember if he was a Minnesota native, maybe.
I'm not remembering that.
But he was a graduate of Upper Iowa, I believe. Wrestled for Mike McCready up there.
And did you and I recognize him earlier this year when he came back, or I was thinking maybe
I can't remember for sure. But one thing from Mondays, Doug Schwab has his. They have their Panther talk, their press conferences. Jacobson, Tanya Warren, they're the basketball coaches, and then Schwab will talk about the weekend and what's coming up. And apparently, he mentioned that Holschlag actually is weighed in.
Wow. Okay.
So Jacob Holschlag, the All-American, that had been hurt and hasn't seen action yet. And he probably will take the trip to Colorado. That doesn't mean he'll wrestle, but he's planning on going. So that means he must be getting better and close enough to getting back, which is a good sign for you and I and for him.
He's lost the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Portions of them anyway. Big portions.
Yeah. So maybe hopefully he's healthy and still pushing forward. Their lineup certainly could use him. But the good thing would be to get maybe a few matches and then be able to hit the postseason healthy. So it almost sounds like it's kind of on track for him. Some
interesting news out of Ames, I thought, with the. Well, first of all, they wrestled Utah Valley, right? On Thursday, and that was pretty much a non-issue, 45-0, I think, and then they traveled down to Arizona to ASU. And
just the one Utah Valley in the Utah Valley duel, I'm just looking it up here. I think it was Todd Smart, Todd Smart. Small with a nice victory there at 133 with an exciting 13-12 victory over number 17 Taylor Lamont. They combined for 8 takedowns in the match, and I mean it was action packed. It went down to the very last second with Small. He's made some big strides there at Iowa State, really strengthening things at 133, which I think a lot of people were unsure of when Austin Gomez wasn't able to.
Right. And he kind of, so then when they got down to Arizona State, when they were wrestling Campbell, I know Coach had been disappointed in this meet because they lost 2 matches on sudden victory, and Small was one of them.
Yeah.
And Coleman was the other. But that's the interesting thing about this weekend. I guess we can finish. They also beat Harvard, scoring that. Yeah. 34-6.
Yeah.
Pounded them. Yeah. And then also lost to number 7 at ASU, Arizona State.
21-12.
Which they had at the break. They had won 4 out of 5 matches, and then am I thinking that right? And then lost the next 5.
Yep.
So,
won 4 straight from 33 to 57, and then lost the last 5. And the one one thing about Iowa State's lineup is Colbury being down to 74.
That's what I was going to say. That's the big news out of Ames right there.
Yeah.
He started out a heavyweight when he first started there.
So that's big. That just shows he was willing to do whatever to get in the lineup. And now at 74, Marcus Coleman bumping up to 84 gives them kind of a different look. The one thing about the event, it was held at is it still called Bank One? Where do the Diamondbacks play now, Nathan?
I think it's Chase Field.
Chase Field. Okay. So the mats were stretched out, looked like kind of near the home plate infield area, and those duels were held there. It was kind of neat. It was called Duels on the Diamond, and it was the first wrestling event held at a Major League Baseball stadium.
I forgot about that. I did see a little tweet of someone that Zahid came out of the dugout carrying a bat and tapped his wrestling shoes.
Oh, did you really? That's funny.
Kind of funny.
So, and then Iowa State this coming up weekend. We talked about the kind of a surging South Dakota State team, which with the wins over UNI and Wyoming might very well be ranked.
I think so.
They had Iowa State heads to Brookings on Friday night, and then I believe have a home duel after that against North Dakota State to close out the weekend on Sunday. So, that busy part of the schedule that Dresser referred to before the Southern Scuffle, they're right in the midst of it, and Oklahoma State looming. The following weekend.
I found it interesting that they're traveling to South Dakota State and then coming back to North Dakota State 2 days later.
Usually you would think it'd probably be a little bit of a road swing there through the Dakotas, but big duels there for Iowa State, I would say. And of course, a lot of people know the prep slate mostly was wiped out this last weekend. There were a few duels outside of the area, maybe some up north. I think Crestwood may still had it, or Clayton Ridge had some tournaments still go on. But most of it was outside the area. The big one, even though the local teams from the Cedar Rapids area, Kennedy Prairie, Iowa City High, weren't allowed to travel, but the Mendenhall and Ames still went on with kind of a shortened team field as well.
I did see that Valley won that, and then I think Indianola was second. After that, I can't tell you, but with the Cedar Rapids schools not in it, I didn't really dig in that deep. But
that's the thing. Just coming out of break. You're kind of knocking off the rust, not necessarily rust, but this is a crucial time of year to really kind of build going into
how far are we out from sectionals?
4 weeks total. There's only 3 competition
weeks.
And one of those is a conference
right?
meet. So you have two weekends left of just regular tournament competition for smaller schools. Then you have conference week and then sectionals.
And I'm guessing because they're missing some competition here, these guys are going to be hungry next weekend.
Yeah.
So you get on the mat.
For sure. And just looking at, you kind of mentioned the results there. Valley, Indianola, Dallas Center, Grimes, who originally was supposed to be at the Benton, the Eckenrod, which had a promise to have a great field before weather kind of wiped that out. But Dallas Center Grimes ended up going to the Mendenhall instead. Dowling. Omaha Scott was fourth there. So, but Thursday there's some really fun duels in the area. I happen to be at Kennedy, Iowa City West, and it's interesting because a lot of times when we're discussing things, especially on TV broadcasts when we're doing duels, so much is made out of ranked wrestlers and when they go head to head. And Kennedy and Iowa City West had that. But the duel came down to the last match. It was an individual that apparently is in his very first year of wrestling.
Noon DeKoon.
Yep. That we've
From
seen.
Iowa City West.
That we've seen, I think, twice before, and he had won both of those matches.
Right. I was going to say, when we saw him 2-0 and an athletic and a...
Yep. Against an individual, another senior, who had been a 3-year reserve, had wrestled JV the 3 years beforehand, and probably is in the lineup because of injury. Some of the upper weight injuries that have happened to Kennedy's lineup, he stepped in, and that duel came down, and those guys decided it.
How fitting.
That was cool. And
I'm going to tell you right now, that's probably Ethan's highlight of his athletic career ever, maybe. You know, when you're... I know I wasn't there, you can tell me, but when he came over, how was he received by the team?
Oh, it was... The place was ignited. I mean, and that was great. And the funny thing is he very a lot of humility afterwards, by him. Mm-hmm. I asked him, about that. He goes, I wanted to celebrate, but I didn't want to celebrate too much because I've been a JV wrestler for 3 years. There's not really much to celebrate, which isn't true. You had a hell of a lot to celebrate because you helped deliver a win. So don't sell yourself short on that. But then he also mentioned, I really wanted to do something else, but I don't think Coach Heenick would have liked that. And not to mention, they won 37-36. So a team point, if you got too overzealous, and he was like, that
would have cost us the meet.
That would have cost us the meet too. So he kept his head well, but you could tell he was beaming after that, and a lot of people congratulating him afterwards. And the one thing about the duel too that I thought was really interesting is, they had a situation there at the end where Dennis Heenick had the opportunity. Will Hoft, so 182 was the only match between ranked wrestlers. You had number 2, Will Hoft of Iowa City West, and then you had number 10, I think Ostendorp is 10, Jay Ostendorp for Kennedy. And you're at a situation at that time where, let's see, I think it was 34-32 at the time. Iowa City West had the report first. It would have been an absolute time for them to trade 6 for 6, possibly. You think Ostendorp ranked 10 at 182 against somebody wrestling in their first year. You'd be able to trade 6 for 6 or 6 for, at least 3 or 4. Nope. The two rank kid, he sent Ostendorp out there. It could have cost him the meet. It really could have. But I want to read this quote from Coach Heenick because I asked him about, why not bump up Ostendorp and trade 6 for 6. And he said, I didn't move him up because I wanted to see how Jay would do against him, Will Hoft. And this was a point that I think was really, really cool and really kind of hit home. Even though it was a huge risk, a lot of people paid $6, and that was one of our biggest matches with 2 ranked kids. And I think that kind of goes, you see jockeying, which, again, I get it. You're trying to have your team have success, do that for the kids, and give them the best opportunity to win as a team. So I'm not going to poo-poo on that. But wrestling needs stuff like that because it builds excitement. People want to see those head-to-head matchups. I know you've been a part of it many times, and of course, you know, you did a great service when, you know, you and City High wrestled, and you had Ironside McGinnis, you know, that matched up a couple times. You know, that's what builds excitement, even though, you know.
That's what filled the gym, and by God, I'd been the bad guy if I wasn't going there.
Yeah, right.
Plus, I don't think anyone wanted to see it more than I did, the Ironside McGinnis match.
Yeah, but I thought that was a great thing to pass on, because I think it gets overlooked sometimes when you're trying to chase that dual win, that people do want to see those big matchups. And you saw some great talent throughout. You know, you saw, you know, Dylan Falk, who was ranked win, Hunter Garvin, Graham Odell, you know, and there were some good, exciting matches. But to have that one between the two, even though, you know, and Hof won handily, he gave up like the opening takedown, but then stormed back and really dominated after that. But I thought it was great that they, you know, it was toe-to-toe, eye-to-eye, and this is our best lineup against your best lineup. And it was exciting, and it came down to the very end. It was a great duel. Great duel, and hats off to...
And maybe he had total confidence in
that's another factor, too. You know, why change it? But it wasn't the only one in the area. Independence and Williamsburg came down to the very last match. And actually needed some extra time to decide that one as well.
Some extra time and some extra time. It wasn't a sudden victory win, right?
Right. It was an ultimate tiebreaker victory that elevated Independence.
So ultimate tiebreaker is this. You have sudden victory for 1 minute. If someone scores a takedown, it's over. Then you have 2 30-second tiebreakers. If it's still tied after those 2 30 seconds, then it's a 30-second ultimate tiebreaker. The guy on top rides you out or turns you, he wins. Guy underneath scores an escape or reversal, he wins. So it went down to ultimate tiebreaker, and the bottom man must have escaped because it was a 1-point match.
Yeah, and that
well, the top man would be awarded a point too. So
could have gotten it right out there, but it was 28-27 in favor of Independence. It was Marcus Beatty at 182 that got that 5-4 ultimate tiebreaker tiebreaker 1.
Was it tiebreaker 1? Didn't go to ultimate. Okay. So it was in the first. So he probably got an escape, and then wrote him out.
Yep.
For the second type.
You know, Independence won the last 4 matches to come away there. Cole Davis with a fall at 170. So they're looking at a little bit of a deficit there before Mitch Johnson, Matthew Doyle, Cole Davis, and Marcus Beatty won the last 4.
I was kind of looking at it. It was pretty equal on bonus points, obviously, with the score the same. You know, there was 2 sudden victory wins, and then that tiebreaker win. So 3 of them that went into overtime. This is a good meet. Would have been fun to be sitting in the gym.
Oh, for sure. And it just goes to show you, you know, I did a little something last week on just how, you know, the WAMAC is a very tough, you know, 2A conference. You've got the top 3 dual teams in all of 2A according to the rankings right there. Williamsburg Independence were tied for second, which certainly was fitting given the way everything played out. So
nothing's going to change there other than 1, 2, 3 instead of 1, 2, 2.
Yeah, right.
Barely.
But it also shows how tough the WAMAC is with West Delaware in there as well, and you know, there are a lot of other teams like Solon, you know, that factor in. CPU has some really good individuals. The other teams have really good individuals, even though maybe not the team strength from top to bottom that these 3 do. But
you'd think that conference, when they go to their sectional tournaments, they might be going, "Phew, conference is over now. I can maybe not have quite the competition."
Yeah, right. Spread out a little bit, and you know, and that's one thing that the coaches talked about. Like I talked to Grant Eckenrod from Williamsburg and Jeff Voss from West Delaware last week, and he's like, "You get to the postseason, we're not going to see anything that we hadn't seen every Thursday night." Or, you know, at our conference tournament. So it really gets them battle tested, and that's a great example of it right there with Indy and Williamsburg last Thursday. And of course, Williamsburg and West Delaware wrestle on the 23rd, and then Indy and West Delaware
week later
battle it out for the Del Buck Trophy on the 30th. So they'll still cross paths here as we get down. This weekend, tournaments get ramped up again. One of my favorites, the Jayhawk, is this weekend. You've got team of West Des Moines Valley will be there. Iowa City High is in the field as well. I can't remember.
Really eclectic. I'm not sure how much
is
has
Underwood
changed.
still?
I don't think they are.
Okay.
Then we've got teams that used to be in it. I'm not sure anymore. Hempstead. You got
Hempstead's
Fort
still in it.
Madison coming down. A couple teams from Davenport. You've got Fort Dodge that used to, Fort Dodge would come down. Marshalltown. So a lot of those teams, I'm not sure if they're still there or not.
I had it here earlier. I just know West Des Moines Valley caught my eye because I don't remember them coming down before.
Right, I think that might be the first or.
Cedar Falls.
Oh yeah, Cedar Falls is
there.
there, huh?
Boone is a mainstay.
Mm-hmm.
Clinton, Davenport Central, and Davenport North. Forest City.
Oh, that's new.
I believe is a new one, right?
Yep.
Muscatine has been there. Waterloo East, and as I mentioned, West Des Moines Valley. In the field that really kind of stands out. Albernet has been there for a few years now, and Boone has been there for a bit. So,
I'll be down at Solon for the Haydenfeld. That's
and that is a tournament that's a doozy, isn't it?
It was a doozy last year, even though they had 3 or 4 teams that got iced out, weathered out. Their school districts didn't let them travel. They were real quality teams that they weren't able to be there. And let's see, Solon, Lisbon. We were kind of going through them before.
Yep. You'll have West Liberty will be there with a few. Iowa Valley, Eddyville, Blakesburg, Fremont, CPU, and Clear Creek Amana are both in the field, and they both have about 3 or 4 really, really top-notch, top-tier wrestlers as well. North Cedar, we mentioned, has a good upper weight. Washington has a few strong wrestlers. West Branch is also in the field. Pella's in the field as well. So some new looks there with Vint Schellsberg. Kind of rounds it out with a couple JV teams from Prairie and Solon in the mix. But, probably one that Lisbon wins as a team, but that's going to be the secondary story behind a lot of individual matchups. Some weights. What
do you think? Will we see
152?
Is Taylor down?
He's still ranked at 145. I've not seen whether or not he's competed at 38 yet.
Okay. Hayden Taylor from Solon.
Yeah, and I would almost expect him to still be at 45, but if he wasn't, that could be fun with him and Cale Happel.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's what I was leaning towards there.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. Marion also has their tournament this weekend, the Lloyd Schaefer Invitational. Of course, that's named after longtime Marion wrestling coach.
And good guy.
Yep.
Lloyd Schaefer.
Atlantic, Benton Community, Keokuk, Louisa Muscatine, Macokota, Monticello.
Grinnell will bring Beck down. He's a decent, real good wrestler. 150.
I was gonna.
Oh, did I cut?
Yeah, I was gonna quiz Nathan and see if he knew where.
Sorry.
Grinnell. That's all right. That's all right. And as we mentioned, Williamsburg will be there. Xavier, Northland. That could be a fun 38-pound bracket where you have Schropp, you have Christian Stanek and Heath Moyer of Northland. And actually, those are ranked wrestlers from 1A, 2A, and 3A between the 3 of them. So that should be fun to see that play out.
They bring in their heavyweight, yeah.
Yep. Who, Carson Petlin of West Delaware upset.
Is that right? They wrestled? Oh, I
They
didn't see that.
wrestled on Thursday.
Okay.
And Patland was able to get a win. But Tavin, as you mentioned, Rich, and then Abe Michael at I believe 170
Right.
as well. So some really good individuals in matchups there. And I think maybe 120, is that where Grip wrestles for Williamsburg? I'd have to
120?
look, but
I
there,
don't
I think
remember.
there's some young,
Right in there.
there's some young talent. You know, you got Cale Bridgewater from Northland as well. You know, Monticello. There's still one of the Lensmans wrestling for Monticello. Benton Community has a couple ranked wrestlers as well.
Boy, they've really made strides. Good for them.
Yeah, so you know that'll be a fun tournament as well. So we're really getting kind of in the nitty gritty of the season.
Murphy's done a good job there, that community. So good
Yep.
job, TJ.
So look forward to that. I will be at Cedar Rapids Prairie on Thursday, and then I'll hit like Marion Solon or the Jayhawk, two of those three. I'll do double duty on Saturday as well. But Prairie is having kind of an interesting night. Their legend, I think they Leaders and Legends or something they called it. It's an alumni night where they're honoring one of their teams of the past. I think from the 1964-65 unbeaten dual team that they have that they're going to honor Thursday night. So that should be fun and neat. So if you know you're a Prairie fan, make sure to get out there and enjoy that.
Let's see if I can come up with some names from there. The Schropp, maybe.
There's
Zach?
there's a Schropp
Zach
there.
Or Zach or.
Let me see if I can.
Oh, we got some other names from there. That's digging deep.
Here, I know you're right on with Schropp. Do you remember the coach back then?
Yeah, Melgren.
Yep.
I wrestled his son.
Okay.
And you know, my brother was coaching at Prairie for at least in 1974.
I didn't realize that. But yeah, the late Bob Melgren was the coach. Jerry Schropp.
Jerry Schropp, yeah.
Gary Schropp.
And Schropp's.
Terry Hartley.
Okay.
Lyle Glass. John Ramidko. Chris Miles. Mike Langridge. Jim Goins. Steve Peterson. Larry Ramidko. Burdette Voss. Jerry Wood and Steve Seltzer were a part of the roster.
Wow.
64-65.
How about that?
And they went 13-0. It might be their first unbeaten dual season, actually. So
That would have been back when they were in, what was the name of the conference?
was it the old Eastern Iowa Hawkeye? I know
wasn't
they were
Hawkeye. I
there.
remember what it was now. We need some help.
Yeah, I'll see if
Let
I can
us
find
know.
out. I'll see if I can find out Thursday. There,
Like
see what
Benton
conference they were.
Community and
Yeah, because it was a smaller.
smaller school. Yeah.
Yep. So a lot of people don't realize that Prairie and Linmar both were part of that smaller
Right. I forgot
school
Linmar too. Yeah.
sect until they've grown to where they are now. So that'll be neat. A little bit of a social beforehand, and then they'll recognize it. I always enjoy nights like this, especially. You guys used to do. I mean, I think Jefferson still does, but you guys always used to have a great special nights to honor past state champions and
Well, some of the special
honor
nights when I was
traditions.
there, we did a 30-year reunion. Or was it 40 years? And then we did the night that the wall came alive, and it was the champion. We had the champions and the runners-up invited in and honored them. We had the Bill McNeil night, which was a huge return of a lot of his wrestlers, and so that was fun. So we've done different special nights like that, and to honor the history and show the kids at the time that the connection to the programs.
So always neat and a great opportunity to honor those previously in the program, and like you said, kind of bridge that gap. And that's this Thursday out at Prairie against Cedar Rapids Xavier. So any parting shots?
Another fun week. Hopefully, we don't get weathered out.
Yeah,
'Cause I
right.
haven't
Knock on
looked at-
wood. Knock
looked
on
at-
wood.
Looked at weather.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah,
I heard
'cause-
we've got an empty spot on the wall here. Is it?
Yeah, this might get filled here sometime soon with pinning combination pennant. We've moved into pennant status.
Yes.
Hopefully we keep our fingers crossed. To join the likes of Mike Halas and on Iowa.
And Sullivan.
Yep.
Don't forget. Or you said on
Yeah. So, you proud of us, Nathan?
Very.
Very proud.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks. But we couldn't do it without you guys tuning in and watching. So we appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in every week, and make sure you keep doing that the rest of the season. On behalf of Dick Briggs and myself and our friend Wyatt Schultz,
Let's keep wrestling on the move.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody.